Speaking of Mitch's music, Kevin, what's the most un-Kevin Grayish remaster that you've ever done?
I take that as high praise.
I don't know how to answer that.
Podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Ecoustics Podcast. I am your host and producer, Mitch Anderson. And this one, just like all the others, I'm just as stoked as normal to be here and just about as excited as I normally am. And so that's a pretty high bar, I think. But I really would like to give a little bit of an over the podcast airwaves hug to my three guests today. We have at Budget Audiophiler, Jeremy Sikora. Hey, dude.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. It's so good to see you and hear your voice. And thanks for setting this and prompting this episode as well. We also have at Audio Love YYC, Eric Pye. Hey, Eric.
Hey, how's it going? Nice to be
Good.
here.
Yeah, it's nice to see and hear you as always. We got to catch up soon on one of our little standalone episodes. I do enjoy doing those.
Let's do one.
I'm ready. Jeremy, we can do one too. And then our guest of honor, our in-house rock and roll, superstar, I guess is what I would almost call it. My superstar rock and roll star with Craft Recordings, Strata East, Blue Note, Coherent, Rhino, Newlands, Sam Records, Lost Recordings, Colorfield, Aramite, and others. Kevin Gray. Hey, man.
Hey, guys.
I love that list.
Now I realize why I'm so tired so much of the time.
But I think rock star does, it is the correct term when all those labels have just been named. Come on.
Yeah, most of it's jazz. I guess Rhino would be the big exception.
Jeremy, take it away, dude. What do we want to talk about today?
Okay, so what brought us here tonight is the Buckingham Nicks reissue. I have been chasing this record for a while. There's a lot of folklore behind it. The background on it is this is Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham's debut album. It was recorded in 1973. It was re-released in 75 when they joined Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac had the White Album, which I'm sure we'll talk about today as well. And then Rumors came out in 77, where Rumors has absolutely blown up worldwide, like upwards of 40 million copies. So This is starting to get where people are maybe drawn into Fleetwood Mac with the Rumors album. They're starting to go back through the catalog, and this album absolutely has its place in Fleetwood Mac history. So that's when I heard there's a reissue, and then I dug into the Rhino page, and then I saw Kevin's name on it. I'm like, okay, this is not just a reissue. This is a Kevin Gray reissue. So I'm like, we need to talk about this because this is a big deal. So I have this on 8-track, cassette, vinyl, and now it's going to come out remastered in a nice pristine audiophile grade from Rhino and the CD. So this is what caused this this evening.
Okay.
So, and you were in the back green room area, Jeremy, you mentioned like some questions too that, I didn't even know that this record was pre them joining Fleetwood Mac.
Right.
So like
got him in the group.
That's what got him in the group?
Yeah, in the group. Yeah.
See, I'm going to learn a ton.
Okay, here's the story about that. So they did the record. The engineer was Keith Olson. They did it at Sound City, and it was the first album recorded on the famous console.
Wow.
The Sound City documentary was about.
Yep.
So that's kind of an interesting piece of trivia right there. And apparently Fleetwood Mac came in to check out Sound City, and Keith said, hey, let me play you something. And so he puts up Buckingham Nicks, and Mick was just blown away. And so he said, we want that guitarist. And they said, well, you're going to have to take the singer too. And they went, well, we've already got a singer, me and Christine. And he went, well, okay. So that's kind of how that all came about.
Dang.
Very cool.
So what about with the reissue stuff in general, Jeremy? I think what did you say? How did you say it? Like following, like what the line was, or how this all came to
Yes.
be, right?
Yeah. So having followed this album and recommended it to many,
including me. If
yes.
you remember, I bought a copy of it when we were in LA for the first the show.
Yes, I basically said you have to buy this album. If you are a Fleetwood Mac fan, you will hear the DNA in this album. You will hear the difference.
Paid a pretty penny for it, huh, Eric?
Yeah, it was about $60 or something.
Oh, that's not bad. I was going for $300.
Yeah,
yes.
It wasn't in pristine shape, and I actually ended up finding a Canadian pressing a few months later that I picked up that sounds a lot better, and then I sold the one that I got in LA for what I paid, and all was good.
Well, you were asking how it all came about. That's kind of an interesting story, too, in terms of Rhino putting it out. I was on another podcast. We won't mention any names. And Patrick was on, and they were asking for, what would you like to see come out on Rhino High Fidelity? And a lot of people mentioned Fleetwood Mac, yep. The self-titled 75. And Patrick said, no, we can't do that because the tape has some damage, some serious damage. There's a couple of tracks that are unusable. And then somebody said, hey, what about Buckingham Nicks? And he goes, well, that's not Rhino, that's Polygram. I mean, it's not in the Warner Elektra Atlantic fold. And so that was the last I heard about that for a while. Then I get a call one day from Patrick, and he says, hey, I was just talking. Well, this was after I did the Doors, and they kind of made a bit of a deal about the fact that I fixed a song that had a tape stretch in it on Waiting for the Sun. And so Patrick said, so maybe you could fix the tape of Fleetwood Mac. And I said, yeah, I'll take a shot. Sure. And so he talked to Lindsay, and Lindsay said, yeah, let him take a shot at it.
Lindsay Buckingham?
Yeah, that Lindsay. And so I guess even though he's out of the band technically, he still has all kinds of refusal and everything, on everything that gets released by Fleetwood Mac. Okay. And of course, Buckingham Nicks too. So what happened was they sent me the tapes, and it turned out two of the songs were mixed on Scotch 226 instead of 206 like the rest of the album. That was the brand new tape that had just come out. Well, that has a serious problem that when it deteriorates, when instead of shedding in a more or less normal manner, the back coating and the oxide stick to each other, fused. And when you put the tape in rewind, it's like confetti going all over the room.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that was the situation with those two songs. So they were able to find safety copies, which were not mixed on or not copied onto that tape. It was also on 206. We put those into the album, took care of the problem. So that was kind of an easy fix as it turned out. But the interesting point is it hadn't been used since I think like 1980 or something. Whoa. So there's a few releases that were supposedly from the master tape. So,
whoa!
Won't mention any names there either. But anyway, so I cut it from the master. Those two mixes notwithstanding. And then I get a call from Patrick, and he goes, "You ain't gonna believe this." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "We were able to secure, with Lindsay's help, Buckingham Nicks. So we're going to be doing that too." And I was like, "Whoa!"
Wow!
I love that record too. So yeah, so it's been a fun year at Coherent.
Can I ask you a quick sidebar question?
Sure.
On that? How do you, when you said you fixed the tape
on the Doors?
Yeah, what'd you do?
Yeah, that was going to be my question too.
I'll send you my 3 videos that I did, just a little short, like less than a minute or about a minute. Okay, what happened? It was on the beginning of the song, "We Would Be So, or Could Be So Good Together," on Waiting for the Sun. I think it's the second track on side 1. Right at the very beginning, it was actually about 2 seconds long. It was like from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. There's a stretch on the tape. And speaking of the 80s, apparently this also happened back in the 80s. So so what Bruce did is he sent me a 24-192 copy that he had made of the master back before the damage happened, and he had me dub that to 15 IPS, 2-track Dolby with Dolby's so I had to align the tape machine to the tapes on the master tape so it would match and all of this kind of stuff. And so I copied and literally spliced the 2 seconds back into the master tape. It's just right as Jim's vocal comes in. There's a guitar thing that repeats like 4 times, and it kind of gets louder and louder and louder. And it's basically the last repeat and then into the vocal. And so just splice that into the master, and Bruce approved it. As a matter of fact, the funny story on that is he listened to the test pressing, called me up, said, "Hey, the test pressing sounds great." I said, "So how was the edit?" And he goes, "Edit?" And I said, "Yeah, the repair." And he goes, "Oh my God. Well, I didn't hear it. Let me go back and listen one more time." And I'm thinking, and he goes back and he listens and he comes back and he says, "Yeah, it's perfect. Great job."
That's amazing. I was just going to say the purists must be going mental when they hear about that. It's like, oh my God, there's 2 seconds of digital in this.
Well, yeah, but we didn't, we could have used a whole digital track, or, whatever, some other thing. So,
and so we're not going to stay on this for long, I promise. But when too long, but when the tape is stretching, you're talking about the physical tape pulling to where it could break being run through.
Right. That's the thing. Tape that was on an acetate base will just break clean. But when they went to polyester, it stretches, and it's much easier to fix a break because you could just splice them back together again. You can't fix a stretch without doing something like what we did.
Wow. That's gotta be a rush. I mean, when you know what you're about to do, that's gotta feel pretty crazy.
Videos.
I'd love to see those. That's really cool for sharing that story too, by the way. Like putting your own edit onto a Doors master tape that's substantial. Only a couple hands in the world are trusted with that type of work, and it's really cool you got to do it. I mean, yeah, for good reason.
The thing that was funny was somebody said, "How long did it take you to do?" And I said, "Would you believe about 4 hours to fix 2 seconds?" Because it involved loading in the digital file. It involved setting up the tape machine to match the master tones on the master reel, and all of this kind of stuff, and then copying it and splicing it in. And I had to copy it like maybe 3 times to get the level exactly matched. And
that's really cool you did that, man. I'm really happy that came up today.
Yeah,
that's neat.
Fun.
So can you tell us about the process from the time you say, yes, I'd like to do this, to what happens next?
Which one are we talking about, or just in general?
Or Buckingham Nicks.
Okay.
Let's use Buckingham Nicks, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where the tapes originated from, but they messenger them over. They're hand carried every single time by Warner, and Universal does the same with the Blue Notes. And so they come over across town, and I put it up on the tape machine and align tones and check it out, listen to it.
That's just absolutely amazing. That these are the original 73s, right? The original masters?
They are. It is a copy of the master tape, and I don't know why, but yeah, it's a copy. Second generation.
How long does the whole process from when you get it set up to listen and you go through the whole mastering process, how long does it take until you've got your lathe cut?
That varies all over the place. I mean, obviously, if it's pre-mastered digital files, I can knock those out, real quick. If it's from analog tapes, if it's something like the Blue Note stuff, that's relatively simple because it was all usually 1 session or 2 sessions, and things usually match pretty closely from track to track. When you get into a pop record, especially, multi-track, might have been mixed in 2 or 3 different studios, that can be a whole different ball of wax. And I generally spend an entire day doing one of the Rhinos, or sometimes a little bit more, because I might master something, and then at the end of the day, maybe after I've shipped, I'll put up one of the Rhino tapes and I'll listen to it before I leave, kind of make some notes, then come in the next morning and give it its official rundown. But I've already listened to it, so I kind of know, what I'm up against, so to speak.
Right.
And and then it gets cut, probably mid-afternoon, and then it ships out FedEx, on like 4:30 in the afternoon, 5 o'clock.
Same day.
Pretty fast turnaround then. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just always wonder, because the number of albums that I see coming out that have been done by Kevin Gray in the last 4 or 5 years, I'm just like, how the hell does he get all of these done? And wow.
That's a good question, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and plus your
Kind of
machine.
being a one-man band, there's a whole other bunch of stuff, dealing with emails and phone calls and shipping and, just filing things away and finding them again when I have to recut something, I don't know, it's
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a question about the variety of stuff that you've done. I know that with like the Blue Notes, the Tone Poets, they all have a sound, right? And the classics, there's also kind of a sound, and they're pretty similar. But is that true of everything you do? Is there like a particular sound that you're after, or does it change from genre to genre?
It changes from genre to genre. Now, it's kind of interesting. Most of not most, but a good chunk of the stuff that I'm doing for Concord is also Rudy Van Gelder, and done at about the same time, because those are, an awful lot of them are prestige titles.
Yeah.
But then there's also stuff that, comes from studios in New York and whatever, and they all have a little bit of a different sound and require a different amount of work. Mm-hmm. I've been doing a lot of jazz titles. Like I'm doing a whole series for Speaker's Corner of the Atlantic stuff and Atlantic jazz. And that's usually Tom Dowd, done at their own studio in New York. And that's kind of a different thing than doing the Van Gelders. It's
Right.
In what way?
Those start out sounding different, and then you go for a different sound out of them to be kind of true to
I'm trying to keep it close to the original sound, but sometimes, things just sound a little off to me, and I tweak them, so.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible, like with all of the different labels that we mentioned at the beginning of the program, and then all the different genres and players and stylings and eras that those all cover, that you're cutting everything from recorded early mono to tape, to recorded at 192 or 96 and digitally. And there is something special, I think, and I know I hear it, so I'll just speak for myself, and I know Eric and Jeremy hear it, but that all of those go through the same signal path.
It's true.
Same EQs. Like, I think that is just wild. How there's when people can't be unified on very much at all, like kind of like a Thanksgiving dinner or something. But what all genres can agree on is that, like, I'd love Kevin to be the last one to touch my record is a special thing. Like, that's a big achievement sonically that all of us get to benefit from. I mean, to have a rig that can do that, Kevin, that's nuts.
Spent a lot of time fine tuning that rig.
Yeah, but to handle it all is special. Like doing all the cuts and stuff that you do, and that equipment being used. Eric mentioned how many masters that he's seeing your name on 4 or 5 years. How often does maintenance come up on, like, your Neumann or on your mastering EQs or anything like that?
Well, I do regular maintenance to try to prevent breakdowns. I mean, if you're asking how many times do things break down, maybe once or twice a year, something, goes wonky. But I have a pretty good stock of spare parts, and I try to do regular maintenance, things like belts and the lathe. There's rubber belts that drive the carriage that has the cutter head across the disc, and stuff like that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And keeping things oiled, and all that good stuff.
Go ahead, Eric.
Do you ever change anything about the setup? Like, okay, I'm going to pull this piece and I'm going to put in something new. Like, is there any ever temptation there, or are you just kind of like, I want to keep it the same because I'm completely 100% happy with it as it is?
And not only am I happy with it, but my clients are happy with it. So that would make it a little bit difficult to change something at this point in time. I mean, I do things like upgrading capacitors. I take a break usually between Christmas and New Year's, and occasionally I'll be doing stuff like that. Right. But the basic electronics have stayed pretty much the same.
Okay, so it's a little different than your audiophiles who are like, there's no such thing as an end game system.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to hear that.
So with all this cutting going on for all these labels and iconic albums and formats, you are also actively producing, recording, and releasing Coherent Records, your own label, simultaneously with all of this going on. I just turned 37 and I think you just turned 27. That is the energy level, Kevin, to do this, my man. Like, you are slaying it. It's really pretty. I don't know if this will get published in video, but I hope everyone can hear my smile about how boss this is and how much enthusiasm and energy it takes. It's really rad. But how's Coherent going? How's Coherent Records specifically going?
It's going slow. I mean, we only have 3 titles out so far since 2022. So, one came out in 23, one in 24, one in 25. Mm-hmm. So it's that's a little bit of a frustration. I'd like to be able to be doing more recording and more records. And hopefully there'll be some workarounds that will allow that to happen in the next year or two.
Hashtag cloning.
Yes, right. Well, try cloning.
Oh, yeah.
But the problem is that it takes me the better part of a day to tear down and set up the room to for recording. Because my mastering room becomes my the control room for the studio. So I have to kind of like pull stuff out and put the console recording, mixer in, and then of course set up the mics and everything in the recording studio part of it, and then when we're done, then it's, the inverse of having to move everything back around again. And the same thing happens when I go to master with a tube system, because I have to move the 2 racks to opposite sides of the room and move in my tube mastering console and, hook up the tube electronics in the Studer playback deck that are for the tube system. So, yeah, all of these things take a lot of time. So, and when I'm really, backlogged with mastering, it makes it difficult.
Yeah, and you're not moving around little items.
That's true too.
Like, that's some serious equipment. I mean, how much do those Macintosh amps weigh?
250 pounds or something. Well, yeah, they're 125 pounds an amp. So
yeah, they're crazy. Like, yeah. But the way it's in a rack that's on wheels, but even that is difficult to move. It's the worst skateboard of all time.
Yeah, right.
But the recordings, I'm yet to get the most recent LP, but the 2, first 2 they're just phenomenal sounding, and the musicianship between the 2 of them, just listening kind of to both sessions, right? Like the records back to back with Kirsten and then Anthony, and the really cool thing was that all the musicians sounded so like in it. They sounded like they felt relaxed. It sounded like they were able to be as expressive as they needed to be from a comfortability standpoint. And when you have the sound and you're capturing the sound the way you are, to also be able to have the musicianship in that way come through the recording process, I think is a testament to, the environment and being around in your space. So from that point of view, man, I think that it's really, really neat. Like, I can't wait to hear the next one.
Well, this recording was a little bit different from the other two in that basically everybody was coming in from out of town. All the musicians on the first two records are local people. So Corey is from Vancouver, and
what's Corey's last name?
Weeds. And he has his own label that I also master for called Real, REEL to Real, REAL. And so I've been mastering for him for almost a decade. So it's a long story. It's in the liner notes, so I won't do a big deal. But my granddaughter actually played me a track in her car of something she thought I'd like. And it turned out to be Corey, a Corey record. And I'm like, wow, I got to give this guy a call. So I did. And that's how it came about. And so he came down from Vancouver. The rest of the cats that he plays with are basically New York guys. So we had David Hazeltine on piano and Neil Miner on bass and Byron Landam on drums. And so they all flew out from the East Coast. Now, actually, Hazeltine had been up to, he and Corey co-wrote some of the songs. And so he went up to Vancouver and they actually kind of rehearsed up there and played some of the material live.
Cool.
So they had a little jump on it. Usually I set up 1 day for rehearsal and 2 days to record. That's kind of what we've been doing. On this record, they got down here from Vancouver at about noon on Sunday when we're going to be recording on Monday. So they came in after they got a bite to eat and got into their hotel and, chilled for a few minutes. And they came in and they did about a 4-hour rehearsal from like 3 to 7 on Sunday night. And then we started Neil had a slight problem with the bass. And so that delayed us a little bit on Monday morning. We started at 11 and it was unbelievable. We did the whole album in 4 hours, just like Rudy did on a Blue Note with those pros.
Whoa.
So yeah, it blew, Joe and I away because Joe Harley produced. And we did 3 hours. We took a lunch break. They came back. They did an hour, and we were done. And so they got to leave early. And Corey got to come in the next day and go over the takes and stuff because we did
super cool.
Typically 2 takes of each song. I think there was one song we only did 1 take. We did 2 takes. We might have done 3 on one song. So we picked all the takes, and then it's basically ready to go. So as far as cutting it.
That's and it's the same process for any other. It's not the same process for your other masters, which we've talked about before. But when you're doing your own stuff, that's when you're rolling out the tube cutting system.
Right. Exactly.
Man, and so a question as a follow to that a little bit. So we've gone from you doing the Buckingham Nicks with the Rhino reissue series. We've talked about a bunch, all these other wonderful labels that you've, got to play your hand in. And then now your label itself, I mean, you're listening to more music every day than anybody I know. And like you're getting, whether you enjoy the music you're listening to.
I almost always do. My taste in music is so broad, that's almost never a problem.
That's amazing. Like, so how does that, we've talked about your career, when you started cutting all those records for radio stations. I remember you telling me all about that, how like you would just cut so many of these radio station comps and really like getting your chops down on that. And now you're doing what you're doing for all these different genres, all these different labels, and all these different audiences. I mean, what's that feel like right now, Kevin, to be at this part in your career? I'm asking selfishly. I mean, it's really cool.
Well, it's great. It's been a wonderful 50 some years. I mean, I can't even wrap my head around that. I'm sitting there cutting, well, I can't mention titles, but I cut 2 records in the last 2 weeks that I mastered originally in '75. So for the 50th anniversary, I'm doing the reissue. It's kind of I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. I really do.
So when you do something like that, Kevin, do you notice things in the original where you kind of think, why the hell did I do that? Or, that didn't sound right or whatever?
Not usually. I keep them fairly close to the originals usually. There have been a couple of exceptions, but only a couple that I can think of.
No, Eric, are you asking like about hearing one of your own remasters?
Yeah, I'm thinking like, thinking like kind of almost like criticizing yourself 50 years ago and thinking, how you've developed since then or something like that.
Well, you have to remember that when I was cutting these things originally in the 70s, I'm working with a producer or engineer or both, or a guy who is both. Right. And so he's going to have his ideas of how it should sound. And so some of the EQ is going to be his idea.
Either
so I was trying to say idea. So yeah, so I've got his EQ ideas to deal with, in addition to what how I think it should sound. So now I have the option of maybe undoing some of that a little bit, because well, here's the thing. In some cases, particularly in the first 2 or 3 years of my cutting, a lot of stuff was EQ'd still for radio. Even though, the radio promotion copies and all of that stuff, they wanted to make sure that if it got played on the air, it was going to sound great on AM or FM, And so, they were tending to add a little bit more mid, a little bit more top, and sometimes rolling off bass because transmitters often don't like stuff with a lot of bass. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not limited with that anymore. So, that might be the one thing that I change, but it wasn't necessarily that I'm hearing it differently than I heard it originally.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Thank God on that too, because you've got some of the thickest low end. I mean, you said it, I think the way you like the big bottom, and that comes through loud and clear.
Thank you.
Jeremy, what's up on your end?
I'm so curious about back to the Buckingham Nicks just for a second.
Okay.
It's coming out on CD. So when you remaster it, how does that differ for different formats?
Good question.
Well, I don't know if I should reveal this or not, but I didn't do a digital pass for that record.
Ah, okay.
So somebody else is doing the CD on that. That's not the case on the stuff that I do for Tone Poet and Classics. I do a digital pass when I cut the lacquers, and that's what gets used for either download or CDs that get made. What is it? Disc Union, I think, in Japan is doing a whole series of those.
Oh wow!
But that was not the case.
In Japan in September, so I'm going to pick up some of those.
Yeah, that was not the case on Buckingham Nicks, though. Although I have a suspicion, I'll bet you I know who did do it. I don't know the story behind this, but after I cut it, it went to Bernie Grunman. And they cut it again with their own thing. And that's what all the color discs were made from.
Oh, okay. So that was another question.
I didn't master those. Wow. And they were done by Chris Bellman. And I don't know why. But.
So Rhino has the audiophile, which the audiophile release, and then they have the colored versions.
Right.
And
I think there's 2 different ones, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. And tell us more on how they differ.
I don't know. I haven't heard the other ones.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, yeah. So that's the biggest. So the audiophile, the ones that are labeled or marketed as audiophile, those are the ones that you cut.
The limited edition
and then
ones
the other
with the all the stuff, and the special liner notes and the special packaging. Yeah, that's the one that I did, and that's the only one that I've heard. So.
I don't know if I've heard of that really, like of a reissue going to more than one cutter. Is that common?
Well, it's not uncommon on stuff that's pressed here and also in Europe. Like you remember that whole debacle on Marvin Gaye. What's going on? That got stickered in Europe as mastered by Kevin Gray, and it wasn't cut by me for Europe. Somebody else cut it.
No, I didn't hear this.
No. You can't believe all the emails I was getting about that from people. And I said, well, I would assume that it's my cutting. And they said, well, it doesn't have your initials in the dead wax. And I said, then it's not my cutting. And I called Universal and I said, what the hell's going on? And they investigated and they found out that they got sent the same stickers that were used for the American release, but they had somebody else. I think it was cut DMM at GZ from a digital file.
Oh my God.
Eric.
I had, that's the whole thing. I have zero control over any of that kind of stuff. I have zero control. For instance, somebody said, so, I listened to the CD or the digital download or whatever, and it sounded on this, that, or the other thing. I don't remember specifically what it was. I don't think it was a Blue Note because I don't think they mess with them. But it was something else, and they said, it sounds more compressed than your vinyl. And I said, somebody's manipulated it after it left my, my studio. So I have no control over that.
So,
Wow.
so the track that they have streaming now, "Crying in the Night," that's not the same cutting that you did. So you're going to hear it differently on your vinyl than you will on your phone. That is fantastic.
Well,
4 albums in
Chris,
one.
let me say one more thing about that. Chris Bellman is a personal friend of mine. As a matter of fact, we're going to lunch tomorrow. And Chris does a great job at Bernie. And he and I hear things pretty similarly. We really do. So I doubt that he did anything radical to Buckingham Nicks. I would bet that it ain't that far off from what I did for the digital.
I do. I hear what you're saying, though, Jeremy.
Probably also for the colored versions too.
Yeah, it's amazing because when you have different versions of it, and for people that love certain albums so much, they're going to listen to each different version, and they're going to hear it. So there's a handful of albums that no matter where it is, what it is, I could tell the equipment is off by the album.
Sure.
So this is definitely going to be one of them, and to find out that they're going to be ever so slightly different. That is actually very cool because I may end up getting more than one copy at this point.
An excuse to buy another version.
No, this is actually a verified excuse to get multiple versions of the same album.
I think there's only one record that I have like 4 masterings of, and that's Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. But and I'm sure there's a whole lot more than that, but I just happen to have them in my collection just because I was curious. I've got an OG, and I've got the one that I did, which was put out in 2011 for Europe. And
Was that the mono?
No, it's a stereo.
No, the stereo. Okay.
Yeah. It was the one that was supposed to be the 50th anniversary, but they had it cut someplace else, and the audiophile press just ripped it a new one. And so 2 years later, they say, hey, we would like to cut this. And I think they were going to sticker them, but the one that I got from the European plant is, and it's in a regular jacket and everything, it wasn't stickered. So I think it's pretty hard to find. But anyway, so there's that one, and then I have the original Classic 45, and then I also have the Classic Records, and I have the Classic Records, the blue one, the blue 45.
The only one that I had multiples of really recent, Joni Mitchell Blue, I think, is kind of the last one that I can remember having multiple copies of. I don't know why. I really like that record. I know my one was really beat to crap, but then when I got the one that you mastered, then the other ones just took a time out for a little while.
Now, you're talking about the one that I did years ago,
Years
right?
ago.
Yeah,
Yep.
because I have not cut that album recently.
No, but man, does that version you cut years ago sound killer?
It's
Thank you.
gorgeous. I have the same one.
Thank you.
It's funny because last night, I don't know if you saw it, Kevin. Jeremy saw it. I don't know if Mitch saw it. I kind of laid out a trail of your records that you've pressed in my green shag room, and one of them I didn't put in. The Joni Mitchell.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
So I was impressed that you did that Eva Cassidy. That one was really good.
That's a wonderful
Oh,
record. Very few people know about that record.
I don't know about that album. Jeremy, do you?
No, you're going to have to elaborate there.
Okay, I'm going to have to do a reel on that one maybe tonight or tomorrow. That is a superb
You know the story
record.
that she was discovered by Mick Fleetwood, right? Now that we're talking about Fleetwood Mac. Yeah.
Exactly,
And I think they recorded that album at Abbey Road, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I don't remember where it was recorded, but I mean, tragic story of her
she died
dying
really
so young and all that kind of stuff. But anything she put out was amazing. And
She had an
the
amazing
other one
voice.
that I kind of was surprised a bit by that you did was Claudia Thompson,
You mean
jazz vocalist.
I don't even remember that one. Who was it for?
I don't recall the label off the top of my head. I'll shoot you a DM or something and send you a pic of it. But
now you got me curious.
Yeah.
Who was the first one? What was the name of the first artist you just mentioned?
Eva Cassidy.
Eva Cassidy.
Okay.
Yeah.
She was amazing.
Yeah.
Have you ever done any of the? We're getting rap in here, but have you done any of the plans for like the earlier like Peter Green stuff? Do you know if that's gonna be?
Yes, I did. I mean, I remember. I don't know if it was recordings outside of Fleetwood Mac. I still remember it was a half-inch 30 IPS tape, and I remember Green Monalishi was one of the songs on it. And it was up at Acoustic, so it was like over 20 years ago. I don't remember who it was for or if it came out or what. But yeah, I have worked on a little bit of Peter Green stuff.
Dang.
And I'm a huge fan. I mean, I liked every, version of Fleetwood Mac, every band. I like the Bob Welch years. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, probably my third favorite record is what's the one called? The one with the strange creature with his licking his finger.
What is the name of that album?
The one that had Mystery to Me. Mystery to Me, Fleetwood Mac.
There it is.
That's a great record if you haven't heard it.
What's number one?
Eric looks like he's about ready to scratch his head.
What's number one? But what's number 1 and 2 in that list? And if that's your third favorite,
well, my first would clearly be Fleetwood Mac. That's my favorite Fleetwood Mac album. Second would probably be Rumors.
Gotcha.
And Mystery to Me would be if you've never heard what's the one with the 13 beat count off?
Their catalog is so huge in so many different eras. I have no clue what title names.
Okay.
No idea.
Feels Like a Dream. You Got Me. What is it? Oh man, I hate it when this happens. Anyway, it's on Mystery to Me. It's a classic tune. Bob Welch. It's one of his tunes. I think Sentimental Lady's on that too.
Huh.
Jeremy or Eric, you guys got rap? Anything
Got Me
you want to share?
Hypnotized. It's called.
Got me.
Okay.
There he is.
You got Anyway.
So how much of what's next can you tell us? Are you going down the Fleetwood Mac catalog? Are we going into Tango with the Night territory?
Not that I'm aware of. And I'm almost surprised to say I haven't heard anything about any more Black Sabbath because I thought I was kind of going to get inundated with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no. The second one that I did is out, right? I mean, that was a while. That was a long time.
Yeah, I was hoping to pick that one up, but it was sold out.
Oh yeah,
locally.
Well,
unbelievable.
Usually later on they put them out as unnumbered,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
But
hope that happens.
yeah, no, there isn't really a whole lot I can talk about because everybody wants everything under wraps until they announce it.
What about you? What about on your label?
No, nothing in the works. We're talking to 2 or 3 different people, which we have been for a while. But yeah, nothing solidified there.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you there are some great titles coming out on Rhino, stuff you guys are going to really dig. So.
Now you're just teasing. Yeah.
teasing. For the stuff that's going to be on Coherent, Kevin, is that stuff where you approach the artists or do you have any of them approaching you and saying,
I have. I've had a couple approach me. And one of those, I think we're eventually going to do a record with. His name's Jacob Wendt. He's got his own album out now, which Fremer reviewed, gave it a great review. And he actually, he approached me before he recorded the record and wanted to do it for Coherent. But I didn't know anything about the guy. I'd never heard his music. I can't even remember if he had any YouTubes at the time. And he wound up going to another guy and recording it, and then brought it. He said, would you be willing to master it? And I said, yeah, sure. And I got it. It was high res digital, and it knocked me over. It sounded so good. The music,
That's awesome.
So and the recording was decent too. He did it. They did a nice job. So,
I ask him about every week, Eric.
Good luck, Mitch.
I appreciate that.
Speaking of Mitch's music, Kevin, what's the most un-Kevin Grayish remaster that you've ever done?
I take that as high praise.
I don't know how to answer that. I mean, you're talking about music that you wouldn't normally consider in my genre.
Yeah, is there anything that kind of stands out as kind of like, well, that was weird, but I'm glad I did it, or anything like that?
Boy, these are questions you should hit me with in an email before we go live.
We can do another one of those.
Yeah. I don't think I can come up with anything off the top of my head.
Next time.
I mean, there might be, but like we talked about a little bit earlier on that same vein, though. I mean, you've been cutting all the genres. You're like I call Black Circle Radio genre fluid, and Kevin, you were genre fluid before I even was born. And but going through and doing all that to have your system set up where there's no type of music or any type of recording that like your rig couldn't handle, I think that's pretty rad. Like, I mean,
yeah. We can't do Atmos, but
I mean that doesn't count
in the stereo realm. Yeah, analog.
Right for this type. Yeah, I mean, that would be interesting to. I'm sure it's in the works, but like an Atmos cutting, would you do that at the cutting head? I mean, would it have to be an Atmos design specific?
You can't get 5 channels on a phonograph record. It's just not possible, or 7 channel or 11 channel, whatever it is.
So you don't want to have like a stylus designed like a garden rake.
Yeah, no, it's not feasible. It's not physically possible.
Have you had any? Is there anything in the cutting world like that? You just bring up Atmos, but like news or equipment or philosophies or anything like that you would kind of deem as like futuristic thought of like where the medium from a mastering standpoint is headed?
Well, okay, a pet peeve is, they're making all of these different stabs at quote unquote green vinyl. Mm-hmm. And I have not heard one yet that I like. So keep trying, guys, but I'm really I'm not rooting for things to go that way unless they come up with something that really, really works. Perfectly. This is kind of funny. There's one in Europe that they were all excited about. It was going to replace vinyl. It was going to be the hot new thing, and it sounded wonderful. This is what they told us. And so send us a lacquer or set of lacquers on a tone poet, and we'll do it, and we'll press them up on these, and then we'll let Joe hear it and decide. They didn't even get to the test pressing stage, and they said, we can't press that. Well, why can't you press it? Well, because there's too much stereo, and it's too dynamic, and things have to be toned down. It's like, forget it. You're
weird.
We're putting out records for the audiophile. We can't tone it down so that you can press it on green vinyl.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
That they couldn't hold the information.
Yeah. So they sent us an example of how it would have to set. They sent them a digital file, and they had to pan the thing in. They had to cut off the low bass. They had to compress it. I mean, all of this stuff.
I mean, was it because the material is just too hard? Or like, why would that even be? I don't understand that.
I don't
That's
press
very
records.
strange.
So
I know. I'm not. That was rhetorical. Sorry. That was my mind.
No, I have no idea what the issues were.
Wow. Is that strange though?
But it was very real.
Yeah, because I have seen, like there's new manufacturers of mastering lathes, you and I have talked about it, on the phone a few times here and there. But there are new lathes being created. I know for sure. I think there's I know there's a whole bunch of different cutting heads being made currently, which are brand new to the market, and some of those are like quote unquote Neumann ready. But have you cut with any different of like new manufactured heads or anything?
Well, I just had two of my heads rebuilt by what's his name in Italy. Borbellini is his last name. I'm trying to think of his first name. Anyway, he did a great job. I mean, they are just like new.
That's got to be nerve-wracking.
It was, but I'd heard good things about him, and I had other cutting engineers had heads rebuilt by him, and they came back and they said they were really happy with him. So, yeah, so I had one that was that I had bought as a defective head, thinking that I would get it rebuilt before it was hard to find somebody to rebuild it, and then I actually did burn out a head. Well, I think it was just ready to go. It had a lot of hours on it. And it just went into oscillation on one channel and popped the coil. So.
While cutting?
Yeah, actually. And I was cutting, of all things, I was cutting a tone poet, and those things aren't generally very, it wasn't something in the program material that took it out. I think it was just its time to go. I mean, it was a 20-year-old head,
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
they were only intended to have a 5-year life when they built them in the 60s and 70s. So
that's the first time I've ever heard that. I had no idea. Like I didn't. Wow, that's crazy. Why such a short lifespan? Good God.
Well, you got to remember back in the day, they were cutting things really hot, and they put a lot of top end on stuff, and particularly like in the rap era, the beginnings of that.
Yeah.
Stopped cutting rap a long time ago, but that stuff was a fight to cut both top and bottom end.
Did they? Wow. So when Neumann stopped making the lathes, did they continue making the cutting heads for a while after? Or
they continued rebuilding them after they stopped making them new. They stopped making them new around 1982, and Neumann lathes and cutter heads just went away. And
was that related to CDs and thinking that was all going to just go away because of that, or?
Well, it pretty much did there.
Yeah.
I mean, they were making DMM lathes for 80 and 82. 80 and there was an 80 model and an 82 model, and then after that, they just kind of wrote off the whole thing. And then in 1990, they got bought by Sennheiser, and Sennheiser had zero interest in disc cutting, so. That was the end of that. But there was a gentleman, what the heck was his name? German fellow. Johannes Richter was his name. And he continued rebuilding heads until like early 90s. And then he passed on. So that was the end of that era.
Dang. I mean, I just didn't realize that even that the heads were being made into the 80s, honestly.
They made about 1,000 of the 68, 74 heads. The changeover happened at serial number 500, roughly. And so all the ones up to 500 were 68s, and then they made some changes, and they the changes were minor, and it became the SX74, and then they made those up to like 1,010 or 15, something like that, serial number, and then that was it. So.
Man, this might be one of my favorite episodes. We've talked about everything.
We covered a lot. Kind of skirted a lot of stuff.
I really like it. And it all started with Buckingham Nicks. There it is.
And Buckingham Nicks is responsible for so much.
Yeah, and I don't know if the title is gonna stay. There's a Rhino in the room, and Kevin wants to talk about it. But I thought that was such a funny title. Like I laughed.
I love it.
It so funny. Thank you, Kevin, from Coherent Records, and just great friend, rock star, inspiration. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Audio Love YYC, and thank you, Jeremy Sikora at Budget Audiophiler. Rad time.
Yeah, thank you for putting this all together, because this was just hearing hearing this album coming and then Kevin seeing your name was just I'm like this just has to happen, and thank you, Mitch, for throwing this together, because this is amazing. So
Yeah.
I cannot wait to hear the album. The 75's coming this week, and then the next album mid-September. Can't wait.
Don't forget to comment, subscribe, like, share, listen, all the X, Y's, and Z's, and we will see you next time on the Acoustics Podcast.